Welcome back, my fellow duplicates. So I was playing a little bit more of my ultimate automation challenge here, and one of the areas that I was doing is I was just working through this right there, just clearing some space out. However, I realized that I have never actually set up an Oxylite refinery, and I've never set it up in such a way that it could be automated. So I think it's time for a little bit of experimenting here. Alright, so I'm over here in my test lab and we're going to work on automating the Oxylite Refinery. So this will be interesting. The question I kind of want to look at here is one, what does it take to actually automate this thing? The other question is, how practical is it to run the Oxylite as compared to liquid oxygen early on before we have supercoolant? It's obviously in the game for a reason, so hopefully we can kind of answer that here by the end of the video. Looking at the refinery here, obviously it has to be a refined metal. That's pretty obvious. And it's going to synthesize oxylite using oxygen and a small amount of gold. It also adds a fair amount of heat. We got plus 12,000 DTUs. Let's take a look at oxylite. Well, it doesn't. Apparently, oxylite turns into magma at 1,400 degrees Celsius. Curious, what's the temperature of the surface of the sun? Okay, well, apparently the sun is like really, really hot. That's probably why it's somewhat nice out today. I'll keep that in mind next time I take a trip to the sun. Alright, speaking of which, you can actually travel way the heck out here. Look at this. Alright, so to power up an Oxylite refinery, obviously we need a source of oxygen. The other thing is that we're going to need some way to dissipate all that heat. So I think what I'm going to want to use here is an electrolyzer. So maybe if I do this number here, knowing that an electrolyzer will produce, it's going to produce oxygen fast enough. I could just do 1. So maybe I could just do this number. And then up here I could do a pump. Okay, so actually you're going to want to build this a little bit before you have those extra awesome materials. So you're probably going to have a steam engine just to get off the ground. Then you're going to have a solid thruster so that you can carry a cargo bay to like your first planet or to your first asteroid out there. So you can bring back the materials you need to refine better metals, or tier 3 metals, I should say. So probably going to have to try to make this out of steel. Oxylite refinery, steel. Okay. But then down here, I'm probably going to want to run a hydrogen generator. And I could probably do that out of steel. So here's my thought. My thought is that we can take this gas pipe here, and then we're just going to create a large kind of string of radiant pipe so that the hydrogen that we're bringing in here will actually take in a lot of the heat that's being produced by these. And then we're going to delete it when we generate power. Alright, so let's science this thing up. Let's see just how much we're going to get out of this. So, you're going to have to bring in the electrolyzer, the pump, hydrogen generator. I'm going to math it up. Alright, if only I had kept this up to date. This would be easier. Oh well, next time. Okay, so here's the thing. The Oxylite refinery will use 600, but the electrolyzer is going to produce more oxygen. So therefore, the electrolyzer is going to overpressurize. So what I really need to understand here, just like when we did kind of this whole madness over here, is the actual duty cycle of the electrolyzer, how much it's going to run per cycle. So what I'm really trying to work here is taking oxygen, which is the one resource that we're actually converting, and making that a net zero. So to do that, all I'm going to do is take the number I am going to use divided by the number I have, and that's going to give me my multiplier. So I'm just going to make this one green. So 0.68. I can now use this to back figure everything out as far as power and whatnot to get more accurate numbers. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to rework the numbers a little bit. Rather than taking the total time it takes to fill a solid fuel thruster, I'm just going to work on per cycle. That way we can get some more predictable numbers that should reflect our reports, knowing that it's going to take more than one cycle to get a full thruster, but that's not a big deal because your rocket goes out there for several cycles. So everything that's affected by the electrolyzer, that's where I need to have my multiplier. And that's this one right there, because the hydrogen generator is going to be affected by that too. So the actual amount of hydrogen I'm going to produce is 112, but it's multiplied by that, minus how much I actually need, times the cycle. Okay, so I know how much the electrolyzer is going to run, so therefore I'm really only getting 75 grams a second of hydrogen out of the system. So that means the hydrogen generator is not going to be running at 100% uptime. So what I'm figuring out here is going to tell me just how much I'm going to be able to run the hydrogen generator. So that's about 75% of the time, so 0.76. This is actually not an output anymore, it's just a multiplier. So that instead of requiring 240 kilojoules, it's going to require 356 kilojoules. On the plus side, we're going to generate a little less heat. 10 million DTUs versus 10.2, so not a big deal. Okay, so there's my predictions. Yeah, let's see how it works. All right, so let me just finish this up. We need to have a storage thingamabob here, and you need Oxylite. So we could put that guy there, and we'll probably, just because we can, I'll put some gold over here as well. Solid gold. Oh yeah, good day to be an oxygen not included. Boom. Boom. Look at all that gold. All right, what do we got here? Refined metals. What about my gold? Loader and a receptacle right there with some conveyors. That's going out. That's going in. We're going to set this to a priority of 1. That's a priority 1. That is going to be refined metal. Looking for gold. Excellent. That's going to be a consumable ore. Oxylite right there. We're going to brush a little bit of water in right here. And just to make sure that we're not getting any sort of false positives, I'm going to make sure to make this entire area a vacuum. I'm going to fill this with a vacuum, or empty it to a vacuum, whatever you want to say. There we go. All right, so let me run you through my blueprint. We're going to see if this is going to work out here. So I have an electrolyzer up here. This is my source of oxygen. It's also going to reclaim a little bit of its power that it's giving off in the form of hydrogen. And that's also how we're going to control the heat output of all this equipment. So up top here, we're going to split a little bit of hydrogen and oxygen like this. So as that runs out of this pump up here, if it detects oxygen, it's going to fall over into this loop over here and jump across the first bridge. So the oxygen here will have priority over the next bridge, which will be coming from the pump beneath the electrolyzer down there. So hopefully that will work out. We're gonna find out if it does. And then that just runs on over here to the Oxylite Refinery. I'm gonna keep messing that one up. This pipe down here is radiant, so that's going to be where the hydrogen is going to go. So if it isn't detected there, it should just come down here and go back and forth, and that will kind of hopefully soak up a lot of heat, and then we delete it when we run it through the hydrogen generator. I have a conveyor loader and a receptacle down here, and the auto sweeper is going to auto fill the Oxylite Refinery, and as it kicks out oxylite, it'll load it up here, and then we're going to store it in a storage bin up there that's dipped in about 2 kilograms of water right there, with the idea that if we are underwater, the oxylite will not give off oxygen, so we don't have to keep it in a high pressure area. We can just kind of try to keep it underwater, which is kind of the same thing. We'll find out if that works or doesn't work. Obviously, we're going to need a little bit more power than what we're going to reclaim, because this is a 1.2 kilowatt piece of equipment with a bunch of other supporting equipment around it, including a liquid pump. So I just remembered I don't have the liquid pump in here. There's actually a fair amount of equipment that I am not calculating as far as the power is concerned when we're talking about sweeper arms and gas pumps and stuff. All right, so rather than stare at this form forever, let's just try to run this thing and see if it even works. Okay, so you can see the oxygen is now... Why is that not doing what it should be doing? This is a large power transformer. It should have more than enough power to fill this thing. And yet oxygen is still flowing past. It's because this priority thing is not working out. I don't know what I was thinking there. This is what it should be. It should be like, just like this, and then this one comes over and then runs down like that. Oh, shoot, shoot, shoot. What is going on here? Why aren't you doing what you're supposed to do? Hello? That's oxygen. Are you not detecting oxygen? Oh, there you go. Bug. Sensor bug. There we go. All right, let's try this again. That's what I wanted to see. And then if I run my automation wire from here to these, well, that goes all the way to 0. Oh, that's why. Oh, okay. Because that was running all the way to 0. Never mind. The large power transformer should be just fine. Okay. This top pump is doing most of the work. The bottom one does function every once in a while, though. Let's see what happens if I switch this out like that. Yeah, there we go. All right. Let's give it a little bit more space. And see what we run. There we go. There, that's a little bit better. And the amount of oxygen we have out here, that's not good. Oh, okay, that's because every time it's in the receptacle, it gives off just a little bit of oxygen. So you see how the number goes up there just for a moment while the sweeper arm kind of does its thing. So here's what I can do. We're gonna copy the settings to that to make that a 6. I'll just move that real quick. And then I'll put this receptacle right down here. I'll move that arm up a little bit. I'm going to have to brush in a little bit more water into this area. Let's say 5 kilograms worth in this. Oh, you're gonna need more than that. It has to maintain a puddle down there. There we go. We got 23 kilograms of water in each spot. So then when I ship the rail, it'll come over here. So if I take this back to a vacuum, yeah, it's maintaining a vacuum. So it's not coming out of this. So if I set that low, there we go. But when it handles it, it actually gives off a little bit of oxygen. So I guess there's a catch, but that's not very much, really. I would say that's fairly acceptable. What happened here? Oh, too much hydrogen. Oh no. Well, learning some stuff. Let's take this and do that number with it. So everything runs through that first sensor there, which means I can just get away with this right there. All right, so there we go. Both of those run through the same pipe, but they separate out into their different spots. Let's say this is going to be above 400 grams up there. So it runs. Interesting. So it doesn't look like it's getting quite enough oxygen to run 100% uptime. Okay, so maybe I just got to get rid of the automation up here altogether. Just let that top one run. Let's see how that changes things. Oh, see, it's cycling between oxygen and hydrogen. All right, so I've got this crazy idea. And I think I've done this once before, but what I'm trying to do is combine give two different types of stuff a chance to combine. So I'll run like this, and then we run out of it. What if I just run it through a gas reservoir? What happens then? Okay, so this thing I'm not crazy about here is that, you see how you have these small little spots of hydrogen? There's just not a lot in it. So I'd rather have those be larger clumps. I mean, if they can be 1 kilogram tiles, then this should work just fine. But being so small like that isn't allowing them to build up to anything significant. So the hydrogen's just taking up too much space. Okay, I'm having fun now. Boom! Heading down a rabbit hole now. You go there, and there, like this, and then like that. Wait, what? Hey! Oh no, that's because I'm moving too much oxygen. Oh no! Well, it worked. Oh no. That's annoying. We're gonna have to run a real filter. I was kind of hoping to get around that, but I don't see any real reliable way of getting around that. So we do this number, and then if we detect hydrogen, we go down here. All right, so if I plug that in, clear everything. Blah. There we go. Okay, now everything's running. It's running good. Look at that poor battery. It's just like draining like crazy. Then again, it is running pretty quick. All right, so the magic gas combiner up here is working somehow. It's working by splitting hydrogen to one side, oxygen to the other. It's splitting without... Okay, sure. Now I'm more intrigued with what's going on up here than I am with anything that's going on down there. Like, I just don't... That's boring. Could I... All right, so if I slow this thing down just a little bit, does it ever turn off? I mean, it has to turn off to be resupplied with gold and stuff every once in a while. And the hydrogen over here is still taking up a little bit too much space, even though we do fill it in with a lot of oxygen. So I don't think this is quite done just yet, but I'm really intrigued with what we got going on up there. That's crazy. All right, so here's what we do. We don't mess around with all of this. That was cool, but I don't think it's going to be necessary. If we just do this number, if we try to keep those two separate from the beginning and just let this do its thing. How's the heat down there, by the way? It's warm, but it's not insane. All right, so if I just stack these like this, that should be oxygen, and then this should be hydrogen. If I run it through a filter, just to make sure, and if it is oxygen, then I'm just gonna dump it out there. Otherwise, hydrogen's gonna go back over here and still do the same plan that we had beforehand. Okay. And I'm not expecting both of these pumps down there to run 100% either. So that means I need to rehook this thing into automation. But for a while there, it's gonna have to be below so that I get rid of all the oxygen up there. All right, looks like I have a working setup now. Let's speed it up real quick, see if it has any issues. I just had to make this a little bit taller, kind of slow down that top one there. It still does pull in oxygen. Come on, it should be clearing that out here pretty soon. Set that to below real quick. There we go. And now only to above. Okay, so now it's just pure hydrogen up there, right? Yeah, there we go. Startup's always a little weird on these things. Perfect. That's what I wanted to see. All right, let's see how much I'm getting out of this in a single cycle here. And clear that out. Put consumable ore down. I should see 360 kilograms over here by the end of the cycle if this thing is running max out. So you can see that it always has some gold and it always has some oxygen, so that's good. See the power kind of going into the hydrogen generator every once in a while. The battery's going up and down as far as its voltage, so this thing turns on and off every once in a while. So you can kind of see what it's doing. And it turns off. And if I fill this entire area with a vacuum, you can see that... Okay, take two. If I fill this entire area with a vacuum, you should see that it does give off a little bit of oxygen, but not much. But only when it handles it. Yeah, I see that right there. Boof. All right, so we're coming up on the end of the cycle here. What was it? 360 is what I wanted to see. 323, 333, 340, 352. That's pretty close to 360. Pretty close. There's a little bit of delay, you know, in the handling of things, but yeah, okay, so it's running 100% throughout the day, or pretty darn close. Now, let's take a look at the reports here and see where we were at. I was predicted to be power-wise 356 kilojoules for all of the equipment except for the pumps, which is going to be a lot of power, actually. Previous cycle. Oh, wow, was I way off? Hang on. Oh, no, that was just used. What was the net? The net. Net. Well, that's not really going to help me because I have multiple hydrogen generators. Well, that's going to be hard to break out. You know what? I need another battery. This stuff's great, but I just need something a little bit different. Nothing like some thermium coal generators. Yeah. Alright, so just to make sure here, I'm going to disable all of these hydrogen generators so I don't get any false positives. Oh, I'll disable all of those as well. Everything. Alright, let's power through this next cycle. Super fast. Let's see here. We can see all the power. Why did the steam turbine... Hey, stay out of it, steam turbine. Come on. Cold generator ran for 683 kilojoules. I was able to reclaim 351 kilojoules by recirculating the hydrogen here, or reprocessing that. So that was 683 kilojoules. So 2 kilojoules per kilogram of oxylite, roughly. So roughly 800 kilojoules of power is used up to fuel a solid fuel thruster. So if we look at the breakdown of where the power actually went, you can see that the conveyor loader wasn't, very demanding. The liquid pump also was not very demanding. Gas filter itself, I thought that would be a little bit more demanding. That's 120 watts now, and maybe I gotta take another look at that thing. That is only using 14.8 kilojoules, not bad. The auto sweeper, though, is doing 34.6 kilojoules right there, so that's actually getting a little bit of a workout. Some of that might have been feeding the coal generator as well. Kind of hard to know exactly. The gas pumps, now there's a pretty major number there, as we'd expect. That's 190 kilojoules. We got a lot of stuff that we're pumping around, and it's not always 100% efficient, depending on whether or not you're dealing with hydrogen or oxygen. So you might be able to tweak this thing a little bit. Let's see if I try to make that a little bit higher. Let's say 600. Let's see what happens to this thing. But the big one there is the Oxylite Refinery. Obviously, that's a big piece of equipment. That's running 720 kilojoules, which makes sense because that's 100% uptime. So there's our key thing. Yes, it is running continuously. All right. Report of the previous day. Gas pumps did 188. 190, 189. Yeah, okay. So that didn't make much of a difference now, did it? Yeah, see, that thing's running like clockwork now. Look at it. Just see, that's 200 there and 200 there. So it is it's a slight inefficiency. Let's go for 750. Let's see if this causes any issues. Nothing. Not even a thing. Okay. How about 500 then? Alright, that's all about the same thing. Really nothing too fancy up there. I'd say the only thing is if you were to set this up inside your base, I'd probably do something rather than insulated tiles here, probably just do doors. Kind of makes it really easy to set up. Alright, so let's just recap here on what worked and what didn't work. So I tried doing some fancy stuff with the pumps here, just trying to use 2 pumps and try to combine some of the oxygen up top with some of this oxygen that comes out on the bottom. That just didn't work out for me. It was more difficult than it was worth. Setting up a kind of standard split for the electrolyzer here seems to work out just fine, as we've seen many times in the past. There's different ways to arrange this, but I like this arrangement. It works well, and it's worked well for a long time for me. So all I'm doing here for the gas, which is probably the most important thing for this, is obviously the electrolyzer goes up and we just put the 2 tiles right there. That could be a door. So the hydrogen is up top and then it comes down here. We have to run this below for a little while to purge out all of the oxygen. But once that happens, then you just change it to above, 500 grams, 600 grams, whatever. It doesn't seem to matter too much as long as it's in that range. And that just runs to a filter. The filter really isn't that demanding power-wise, so probably just running a gas filter is a good way to go. You can slightly make it a little bit more efficient if you're just using a sensor and then a gas shutoff valve, but you're really not saving that much power. So that detects hydrogen. If it detects hydrogen, then it skips down over here and then ends up inside of the hydrogen generator. I just have 2 gas pumps down here stacked on top of each other. They're just combining into one single pipe, so they kind of just run whenever there's space. So one of them is always running 500 grams, and then if it kind of runs a small little bit, then the other one picks up the slack. Not to mention this thing here is consuming at kind of an odd rate of 600 grams a second, so it's a little bit beyond one pump. That seems to work out just fine. You have an auto sweeper that kind of loads and unloads. So gold comes in, oxylite goes out, and storing it underwater here seems to do a really good job of just kind of keeping that oxylite contained. So just like we see with slime, it works with oxylite. It doesn't try to bubble off, but you do need to have a little bit of water down there. In my case, I have 23 kilograms worth of water in both tiles right there. Not a big deal. So putting the conveyor receptacle underneath a little bit of water keeps it from bubbling off, and keeping the storage bin underwater keeps it from bubbling off. The one thing that isn't accounted for is when it's inside the auto sweeper there, just for that slight moment, then it lets off just a little bit of oxygen. I mean, we're talking just very, very little. So as far as a self-contained kind of oxylite plant, yeah, this thing works out, and it works out pretty good, and it's just over 1 cycle as we saw in the calculations. Oops, not there. As we saw in the calculations over here, in order to fill up a solid fuel thruster. So you could, if you really wanted to, replace this with a smart storage bin. So if I try to make this just enough for 1 rocket, 400 kilograms, right? We clear the floor down there. Then what happens if I run an automation wire? I want to run it to these pumps. I want to run it to the electrolyzer. Basically everything here. There you go. We'll just kind of tie it in. That thing does require power. 60 watts, which is kind of unfortunate, but okay. Automation. Okay, so it's not. We want to run that to a not gate. So we'll run when it's not full. There we go. Check this out. Okay, so if I just do this number, deconstruct that a little bit. There we go. And then build a solid fuel thruster over there. It's awaiting for 400 kilograms of oxylite. Now, once this thing is done, watch. There it goes! Boom! It just turned everything off. So now, I'm no longer producing any more oxylite, because I don't need it. Where's my dupes? Oh, they're all in the shower again. Millet, come up here. No, okay, fine. You don't want to be teleported. Stop doing your thing. There you go. So she grabbed, how much does she have? 200 kilograms of oxylite. Oh, and it's not giving off any oxygen while she's holding it. That's good. Boom. Right into there. And now this thing is running again. Ha ha ha! Automated oxylite. Well, there you have it, guys. Hopefully you guys found this video somewhat informative or enjoyable. I like it. I think that's pretty cool. I'm a big fan of oxylite all of a sudden. That's not bad. All right, so for the last question here, it's kind of a hard one to answer because I'm not 1000% sure on everything here. But what we do have here is the ability to either go to space on liquid oxygen or oxylite. However, liquid oxygen will get you further into space. So if we fill up 1 solid oxidizer tank, it's going to be 2,000, right there, 2,700 kilograms. That's how much we can put inside there. So that is a lot of oxylite when you stop to think about that. So when we look at the calculator here, that is 7.5 cycles of continuous production. So you can get some sort of idea of just how much power that is. That's quite a lot. And for that, you'll get a a total of 68,000 kilometers of distance. So once you bring that back down to a more practical level, because you only need to go 60,000, you end up with 2,200 kilograms, which is still quite a bit when you really work on that. And that's just taking 1 cargo bay up there. However, if you were to run that on liquid oxygen, you'd have a total distance of 90,000. So you can go quite a bit further. So when you look at that, it makes a lot more sense to run liquid oxygen because you get so much more out of it. Now, when we talk about actually producing liquid oxygen, well, the only practical way to do it without supercoolant is to run it through a thermoregulator, because it's nice and efficient. It isn't, you know, crazy as far as its requirements. You can set it up fairly early on, and your limiting factor is just how much you can produce in a single day. So on one system that we saw down here from the video that I did on liquid oxygen production cycle 1, that would give you 75 kilograms of liquid oxygen a day. So it would take a little while to fill up one tank, so you'd really only get one good trip out of it. However, if we take a look at the star map here, I was able to go to this carbon asteroid over here and get a very trace amount of fluorine, potentially. And if you can get your hands on fluorine, you have the key ingredient to make supercoolant. And once you have supercoolant, you can produce a ton more liquid oxygen, because you can set up a system like this. Now, you don't have to run this thing max out as much as I have going on up here, but that will give you the ability to produce a lot of liquid oxygen at a fairly efficient power price, I guess, is a good way of putting it. So that was episode 3 of liquid oxygen production there. So it makes a lot of sense to really kind of, I guess, power early rockets in your base with solid fuel thrusters combined with a steam engine to kind of get the necessary research that you might need. Because you can actually get fairly far up in the atmosphere if you're just running like a research module or two. You can travel a good long distance. Actually, if we just go without any sort of payload, or just one research module, which I don't think you'd run just one, but you can see just on the steam rocket, you're going to get a net distance of 14,000. Start to add a solid fuel thruster, you can get to 24,000. Then you get to 36. Whoa, how many did I click there? Once you get beyond 3 solid fuel thrusters, the weight penalty is so great that it doesn't help you. So you can really only run up to 3 of those. And it's really only efficient with 2. So you might add another just to get a little bit more. It's not very efficient at this point to go out there 30,000, but you can sure send up a lot of research modules. Look at that. You can get 4 research modules with 3 solid fuel thrusters on the steam engine. But then again, once you can travel 31,000 kilometers, I don't think you'd do that. It's not really research modules that you're concerned about. The solid fuel thruster is really only used to send out that big cargo bay the first time to that nearby asteroid and hope that you can get some fluorine out of it. Because if you can, then you got liquid oxygen and you can just move on. Actually, can you lug 2 cargo bays out there? Oh, that's a big fat no. So it looks like it's just 1 solid fuel thruster, cargo bay, steam engine, capsule. Yeah, and you're good to go. However, that's all I have for you guys today. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this little episode here of Oxygen Not Included. Let me know what you guys do as far as the Oxylite Refinery. This is kind of the first blueprint plant thing that I've set up here. Never actually made one in-game, but I'm thinking about making one here pretty soon in the Ultimate Automation Challenge. If I've earned your subscription, then thank you so much for that. Have a great day, guys. Stay awesome. Peace. Brothgar out.